Welcome to another edition of Drummer Nation, the show for and about drummers, all things drum and drum related. I have a great panel for you today and a world-class legendary guest. Let's start with the panel. My esteemed cohort, partner in crime, Adam Nussbaum. How are you, sir?
Woo! I'm pleased to be here with such luminaries as Cosmo agrees in the background. And yeah, wow. Thank you for having me.
You're welcome. And I was reading up on our special guest, and I realized that he had been a student of Ed Soph years ago. And Ed's a good friend, a friend of the show, been on many times. And I asked if he would graciously join us, and of course he said yes. So hello, Ed Soph. Nice to see you again.
Hello. Good to see you. Good to see everybody.
And our special guest, if you want to put the word living legend, there's not very many drummers that can really qualify for that. This guy certainly can. 50 Grammy winning songs he's been a part of. He's worked with a few people. Let me name a few. Michael Jackson, Barbra Streisand, Quincy Jones, Steve Winwood, Chaka Khan, Madonna, Rod Stewart, Whitney Houston, Lionel Richie, Bonnie Raitt, Lady Gaga, Eric Clapton. Holy smokes. Please welcome Giant J.R. Robinson.
Hey, thank you. It's great to be on Drummer Nation.
We're happy to have you here. All those people, you just couldn't keep a job, could you?
Well, they're almost in the B level, so it's and you know, one of those singers sings sharp.
Anyway, Ed Soph was an early teacher of yours. Ed, you don't remember this guy, do you?
Yeah, he was only 3 years old and I was 20.
That ratio is not too far from the truth. No.
No, it's not. That's not true. So how did that happen, John? How'd you find yourself studying with Ed?
I started going to music camps, and that was the fashionable thing to do. Coming from Southwest Iowa, we were a bit limited. So my first camp was at Northwest Missouri State, and I was still in junior high school. And then the next year we branched out, and I found out that Ed was in the Jamie Aebersold National Stage Band Camp program. You guys were touring around, but this was at Illinois State in Normal. And so we hitched a ride with my uncle, and he drove us over there, and I did that 2 years in a row with Ed. So I was just about entering puberty with Ed.
Sounds like a book. Ed, what do you remember about the young JR?
Very gregarious young man, big smile on his face all the time. Lots of questions.
Yeah.
A guy who made it easy. You know, it's easy to establish a rapport with him, and he was not afraid to find out what he couldn't do,
Right.
which is the mark of greatness in my way of thinking. Yeah, and he wanted it all, and he wanted it as quickly as possible. So slowed him down a little bit and just talked about basics of the hands and feet, and he took it from there. Of course, he went on go to Berkeley and worked under Gary Chafee.
Oof.
So yeah.
That was a rough one.
Yeah, all in all, he was just showed a really great love, not so much of just the drums, but of music in general. And that's always a good sign when somebody that young has the big picture and is not just focused on his instrument.
Right.
Yeah.
Bingo.
Yeah, that's the key right there. And you know, these kids don't even see that. You know, some do, but
Yeah, it's a pretty visual instrument. I mean, you'd be hard pressed to find somebody who said, I decided to play drums when I saw a guy playing a ballad with brushes.
Ed Thigpen, man, it changed my life.
There you go. There you go.
Now, you mentioned Ed Thigpen. You started at a young age, and your parents hipped you to big band jazz music, Krupa and the rest, right?
Yeah. I mean, my mother, my dad had gone to Duke University through the war, and I think my mother was fishing, you know, and she caught one at Duke. So my mother being a Southerner, but she just loved big band music, and would just I'd sit on the floor and crawl, and she'd play me all this hip stuff that I had no clue, but she would mention names, you know, of these old famous drummers and whisper them to me, and then talk about the word swing. And I didn't know what it meant, you know. I mean, it's like not until I actually studied with Ed, you know, because we're all trying to listen to, and in my generation, in that early to mid '60s thing, there was this rock angry beast trying to peer through all this beautiful jazz stuff, and you know, so there was a lot of confusion going on, you know, when you're growing up and trying to, you know, hone your skills.
You know, this Kenny Aronoff once said that every good pop drummer has to have a jazz drummer's mentality,
Mm,
and meaning that if you can improvise, you can fit into a lot of different situations. And we all know that the early studio players in Los Angeles were all jazz players.
that's right. Yeah.
Yeah. Uh, so just one, I was watching I think it was the Grammys or the Academy Awards show a couple of years ago, and they had a killing ass big band. I mean, it was great. And I'm going, who in the hell is that drummer? And it was the man sitting here who's smiling as he should. It was JR. And I'm thinking, man, you know, that's it right there. If he can hold a 16-piece big band together and swing it, he can do anything, which
Well,
he's done, which
that
he's
was
done.
that was
But
an
it,
89 piece band, but yes, thank you.
yeah, yeah.
But you held them together.
Yeah, I mean,
Everybody but the oboe player.
it was swinging, and that's what the kids don't realize. They compartmentalize everything, but they've got to realize that it's all, whether it's pop or whether it's big band jazz, it's all about musical imagination and
Right.
musical knowledge and being able to fit into the various situations, which is the key to being a successful studio player. You've got to be a chameleon.
Yeah.
You've got your standards, but at the same time, you got to be able to mold those standards to make the artist happy. And that's the true calling of a great artist in any field, really, I think.
Today is actually the birthday of somebody who you don't think in that regard, but Connie Kay.
Oh yeah.
And Connie Kay did a lot of early R&B dates.
Yep.
And a lot of, you know, and then everybody knows him from the MJQ, but you know, this cat, he could cover so much terrain. You know, he had a very unique feel. He had big ears. And you know, there you go. You know, I always try to consider myself like, you know, like you said, JR, you grew up in an environment where you were hearing all this music at an early age when
Right.
it has a deep impression.
Right.
And I always look at myself as a musical erasist. Let's erase the names, you know, either it's happening or it's not. What does the music tell you to do? And how can you get in it and help to facilitate everybody else to sound good? You
Well,
know?
I mean, backing up, after I think my second summer with Ed, I go, man, you know, I'm in Southwest Iowa. I'm just going to get on Highway 35 and just bolt down to Denton. You know, I can get back home on the weekends or, you know, for the holidays to see the parents. And Ed paused and he said, no, you should go to Berkeley. And I go, oh, and I'm thinking all the pressure that I got to put on my father at that point, even though I wish that tuition was like that today. But,
Yeah.
So going to Boston was, I mean, those words I heeded hard. And I mean, there was a full culture shock. But the point is, in my freshman year of just trying to get to know everybody from all over the world and trying to blend in with people and, you know, trying to get your skills and you realize, yes, there is competition. And, you know, I'm, as a basketball player, I knew competition. So, but I got to meet a guy named Toru Okoshi, who's Tiger. He was a jazz trumpet player from
Oh yeah, yeah.
Tokyo, and they used to call him the Japanese Miles, which was, you know, their way of saying. And so I ended up doing a senior recital as a freshman for all the profs were there. I mean, Laporta and Pomeroy, they're all there, and I think Marion McPartland may have been there. And on this, it was 3 movements on this sheet of paper. Now you're talking about we go into a band, right? And we're playing music, or let's go to, you know, chart 200 and chart 11, and okay, we got all these charts. Well, this is in our contemporary music from the last 80 years. Well, the first movement was some Japanese thing Tiger wrote, which had just written on colored, straight penciled weird markings and symbols, almost looked like Mayan etchings. And that was the first movement. And all of a sudden he goes, and I go, fuck. So I'm finding like I don't know, a spare key and scratching it on a stand and maybe and kicking something and then making all this really weird sparkle stuff go on. I go, I did not know, Ed, that I was going to be playing that kind of music also.
Well, John, you
Great.
mentioned that there's swing music. Swing creeps its way into everything. So, we all know Ringo had a swing, Charlie Watts, people you wouldn't expect in Motown stuff. How did you manage to put your own brand of swing into these contemporary settings?
I give praise to upstairs here because when I I was a piano player at 5, way too young mathematically. My dad was a tyrant and always stood over me, and he was a great musician, even though he was a doctor. And thank God I got hit by the God drum bolt between 7 and 8. And the first time I had like a late 40s piece of crap Duco Ludwig, no toms, a straight ride cymbal coming out of the bass drum was 12 inches. And I'm assuming it was like a 40s Zildjian and really crappy hi-hats. And the first thing I did was, I held the stick wrong. I didn't hold it like that. I held it like that. But the first thing I did was I played a swing beat. And I could see that everybody responded. And that response taught me something. I don't know what it was. It just taught me of, I guess, acknowledgement for playing a swing groove. So it was a straight swing groove.
But you managed to put that swing into everything, right? I mean, doesn't everything have a little touch of swing to it?
Yeah, even the non-mentioned artists. Yeah.
How did you do that?
Well, I mean, first of all, and I think all three of us know and four of us, when we presented a song, the first thing you do is listen. And you need to really listen. And Ed, you were really instrumental in teaching about listening. But I was always that guy. It's just sometimes you need a mentor to help prod you into listening more. So you listen to the song, and I basically erase anything that I'm thinking of as a drummer. I mean, I don't hide it, but I memorize the song, and on the first gate, it's very much probably Buddy-ish. And then if there's a chart, or I'll write a chart the second time and I'll look at it. And then in our day, they would have demos with cassettes. So they were awful. And, but I would say, no, I don't like whatever the hell that was there. I'm going to move that. And then you start to gear up, determine what the sounds are best by working with the engineer. And, you're also dealing with 3 other guys that are trying to hone in on what they're going to play. And then the important thing is to play together. So the old Jeff Beccaro adage was, well, I got my take, you guys overdub over it. Mm-hmm. And, I went through a little bit of that hard shell in the early 90s, and with Dean Parks corrected the living shit out of me in a good, very, very good way. And he goes, just because, you got your part earlier doesn't mean that I did or anybody else did. And quite frankly, once they do get their part, it will change your part. So mm-hmm. it's mostly listening and then application. And there's no competition. You're in there building the same car.
That's a good point.
Mm-hmm.
That's a very good point.
For the common goal.
With a common goal, yeah, to make 0.00025 on any sort of reuse.
We'll talk about that in a minute. You were playing with the click from way back when, right? That's something different than jazz players generally did. Did that involve some adjustments on your part? Harvey Mason told me the click is his friend. He doesn't bother him at all. Do you feel that way?
Yeah, I mean, when I was at Berkeley and became the recording drummer in 1974, I was introduced to a click track, and it was a 7-frame Uri film click. And I go, I don't know what that is. He goes, well, you're going to hear 4 beats of the click and then just play the Thad Jones Mel Lewis chart down. I go, okay. And then I got done, and I felt like I didn't think anything about it. It was just a thing. And I go, how'd I do? You did great. You want to do another tune? So that led into Los Angeles, where at that point, maybe 80% of the stuff was clicked in 78 and 79. And then when I got with Quincy in 79, he let me program that 7-frame Uri click, which buzzed and it was awful. But I mean, that's how I did the whole Off the Wall record was I looked at the demos and I matched clicks, and then I played like on my knees to make sure it felt right, and then ran it by Quincy and Bruce and Michael. And I also like when I teach, and I don't teach as much as Ed did, but if we're doing something where they're overdubbing, and I have a full studio here, so I'll send them X amount of click level, and some guys that are untrained will go, can you turn it really, really, really soft? And I go, okay, and then I'll record them, and they come back in and listen, and they are way behind, and they don't know how to prioritize what to listen to. So I've always listened really loudly to it'd be a Uri sample, or in today's times it's an MPC sample, no accent, quarter notes only, no Nashville. I don't know if that helps any of us in this room, but
I followed you till no natural. What does that mean?
No Nashville.
Oh, Nashville. I see. Okay.
Nashville guys tend to use straight eighth notes on any kind of groove, which cuts away from any sort of feel between. There's no space, and you're always hearing this stuff going on all the time, and it's like you can't flow or bend or move. The whole thing about a quarter note click and playing with a click and making it your friend, like he said, is I mean, it's there, but you don't care. I mean, it keeps you on the tracks, and you're still mastering listening to the way the song is going up and down and back and forth and soft and loud and this is a totally different subject. But with Hans Zimmer, when we started doing all those Superman stuff, and I was the lead drummer, and I would make sure that I would sit at a specific spot at 3 o'clock and have all these other 11 drummers around me. And we had once Jason Bonham as a drummer, and he was sitting on my right. And we had a guy in the front, and there was no headphones. So all you could hear in the phones was a little point of the click and his voice. You couldn't hear anything else. And he'd play like at pianissimo. And at pianissimo, Jason would drag. And then at fortissimo, Jason would rush. So I goes time out. So I took him aside and I said, this is not your band. We're all playing as one. So, we need to follow the guy and play simplistically and everybody in unison. And then he finally got it. He was such a great musician. But it's true with everybody.
So the beat is a wide place, right? I mean, the space between the notes is your business. You can be, do you like flam the left hand sometimes on 2 and 4, or, if you
only on bad eighth note tunes.
You know what I mean? Where the left hand is a little delayed or a little.
Yeah, I mean, you have to, because, I mean, and my whole word is every time I hit the bass drum, that's word. That's exactly where time starts and ends. So anything up and around that has to be done in a flow, in a hump. So I mean, if it's an eighth note tune, the 2 and 4, I'm delaying 7 milliseconds. So to do that, 1 and wherever the bass drum hits are exactly on the beat. So what do? You do have to delay everything else in between to make it flow. So it doesn't sound like a straight on your shank eighth note Cars tune, and that's something that has to come naturally, and you don't do that by yourself. You do it by what the song's dictating.
We had Vinny on recently, and he was talking about being in a date, and he sees a guy over in the corner, and he's taking all the snare drum notes and lining them up to the grid. And Vinny's like, well, what are you, what, no, no. I mean, that's where the groove is, right?
Yeah, but these guys are after everybody. We go home and make dinner. They're editing us to make us sound robotic, and that's today's music is just mostly awful.
Isn't it though?
Yeah,
And what's why do you think, why do you say that?
it's become a. I mean, and like we're all of us, like we're going to become our grandparents. We're listening to fucking Hendrix. Oh my God, we're gonna and we're not listening to big band. Well, ironically, all of us in this room are listening to big bands probably up till today, and we always will because that's just the way it is. And now my son Jack, who's a great drummer, he's listening to all this. He always does. He pays attention, but the majority of people are stupid, and they listen to stuff that's going to Coachella, and it's all about a fashion show, and it's like a quick fix. They don't understand that they think we're expendable, and it's a hard fight to do. And Ed, I know that you taught for God knows forever, and it's depressing actually. I mean, I formed a 501c, two of them, and realized that this is almost nearly impossible without going to Home Depot and buying knee pads.
Mm, mm.
It's really hard to do other than what kind of work we're all doing here, and then passing the torch.
Yeah.
Wow, that's very interesting. So when you were on all those dates, do they pretty much call you to be JR? Do you are given much instruction about what to play, or?
I mean, there's been a lot, thank God. I mean, in the beginning days, when I first made it and joined Rufus, I was still green. I was hitting too hard, and I didn't understand about mic sound pressure and what mic did what. And so Roy Halley, the great engineer from Paul Simon, educated me, and then I started working with Bruce Swedien. So Quincy gave me full control. And if indeed there was something that didn't feel right, he would come out and in his inevitable way, go, JR, you're dancing too much. In other words, you're playing too much shit. Mm-hmm. And it's like, it brings me to the point of, God forbid we watch TikTok and we see these drummers that are one-man machines, and they'll never get a gig. And so this is our new group. I'm proposing that we start the drummers of the Olympiad, and we audition. We have to go through PASIC. We're gonna have to get everybody to sign off on this shit, including Congress. And we get the freakiest guys, and we have them just. It's like lion killing. We put them out there and let them play all that crap, and we judge them on that. I don't know if it'd work. But I mean, it's not going away.
It's funny you say that. Roy Burns used to call them Olympic drummers.
Oh, he did. Well, all right. See,
Drum crabats.
I mean,
as Adam has said many times, way too much of not enough.
Oh, well, that's well said. Shit. I mean, there's so many great guys that just played very, very simple. But I mean, as you said, Adam, you have to be a chameleon. And rarely are there times where they want you to just expound like Vinny's in the studio. In other words, Vinny always had this beautiful ability to just play all this stuff, and somehow it wasn't so bombastic. It blended in sonically, so it was very cool. He's a rare one.
Yeah. Let's talk about simplicity. Take the simplest rock beat in the world, like say bass drum on 1 and 3, snare drum on 2 and 4, eighth notes on the hi-hat. Okay, so a 10-year-old can play that, but JR can play it too. What does a pro bring to that somebody doesn't, who's not so experienced, even though it's just incredibly simplistic?
Well, again, I mean, if you're by yourself, you should still be able to make people get up and dance. And I've one thing that I always remembered, even if you're playing simplistically, once you get on the drums and there are people in the room, look at them, and if they're moving, then you're doing your job. You know, I don't care if you're playing swing or straight eights, and for a person to just learn the money groove, it all still has to tie in with the guitar player. What is he playing, or does he know what he's playing? You know, what is the keyboard playing? Are they playing too much? What is the phrase of the melody going on? Because that generally will dictate what you're going to play. But it is something to be said. You know, if I'm playing at 110 BPM, and I demonstrate this, and it seems so simple, but it's not. Is, you know, playing like a robot, or then playing like me by laying it back, but the tempo still remains the same, and it sounds like two different drum grooves.
That's what I was getting at. Yeah. And because of the feel you bring to it, the emotionality, the groove.
Well, yeah, I think another thing that if you watch JR play without sound, or watch any drummer play without sound, so that you're forced to see how they move, see how they manipulate the sticks, there's so much involved in developing, just on any, as anybody does on any instrument, a personal attachment and personal touch to the instrument. And that develops once you've got, I think, once you've got an inner vision, as it were, of how you want to sound. Not
Right.
by yourself, but with other people. And where you get to the point where your frame of reference is the music and not yourself.
And
That's
not the instrument.
Yeah, that's the key.
Right.
The 5-year-old playing the basic rock beat and the 30-year-old playing the basic rock beat, the big difference is the 30-year-old's going to sound better because he knows himself or herself well enough and has enough confidence that they don't have to listen to themselves. Whereas the 5-year-old naturally is going to be grooving on what they are doing
Right.
and don't have the self-confidence or whatever it is to say, okay, I can do my thing, but I'm going to do it in relation to everything that JR is talking about. Let the music tell me how to do it, you know. But then the personal attack, a touch, all that's part of that magic word called concept. And that's people have different concepts. They sound different, but what do they all have in common? They all sound musical, you know.
Yeah.
Serve the music. Serve the music.
Yeah.
Well,
I mean,
go ahead,
go
Chuck.
ahead. Well,
No,
I
you-
was just, you know, after being a student of Ed's, and you know, by the way, you know, you could have been on Mount Rushmore when I was 16, so it was one of those things. But watching fluidity and I mean, now we're getting into individual things, but I see some very famous older drummers. And I just immediately, I mean, addicted to scrolling, which is not good. But I am looking at people like Grace Bowers, for example, this new young phenom that's like Bonnie Raitt, you know, for things for me to work with. But I see these. I'm not going to mention names, but Ed was always something about logic, and you know, I remember going through this Alphonse Mouzon shit where, you know, the blood's hanging down so far that you better be fucking a nurse. She's gonna need you. And then Ed said, no, just everything's an extension of your body. You know, you're tall, you're short. This is it. This plays well. The floor tom's there. And, you know, the thumbs up, and then blah, da, 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 da. I see some of these guys that are doing all this stuff. I go, what? It's just, I'm just like, thank God I can turn the page, you know.
You don't generally make strokes from here, do you?
God,
I mean, we have the shoulder, the elbow, the wrist, and the fingers.
well, only against the accountant.
I'll tell you, the only guy I saw who could get away with doing that, and doesn't mean he's the only one, but the only one I experienced on a regular basis because we were doing clinics together, was Tommy Aldridge.
Oh, yeah.
I mean,
Yeah,
he was
I've
up
seen
over his head, but it
That's-
was slow. It wasn't a hammer, you know?
Yeah, show, yeah. And
Yeah.
oh God, I love Thomas.
It's a little bit of show business. Nothing wrong with that.
A bit of show.
It works in a stadium and coliseum, you know, big venues, outdoor sheds. You mentioned some of your top 5 drummers. in an interview I saw you with. It would be Gad, Harvey, Jeff Porcaro, Peter Erskine, Billy Cobham. And we had them all on the show except for Steve, hopefully sometime soon. Let's look at those for just a quick comment. Gad.
Right, and just so you know, in my book, and I mean, Ed was kind enough to, put his heart and soul into the word, and it's really great. Not to say that he shouldn't have been there, but I used a concept of targeting. And, I'm Southern Iowa. We used to go hunting. So my whole concept was, let me target the music that attracts me and see what makes it unique. Why do I like it? And why do I think maybe I could have done something different? Not necessarily better, but for something that I felt I blended into. And for example, when I look at Sonny Payne and I'm thinking, oh God, I just like that he's a freak. And then starting to work with Quincy, and Quincy only came back once and mentioned Sonny Payne to me, and I knew exactly. He didn't say shit. He just said Sonny Payne, and I get it. But Gad, Steve Gadd, has had such a remarkable life, and once you're young and you start idolizing these guys, and you listen to Just the Two of Us, and you're listening to You Keep Me Like Dancing, Leo Sayer, and you realize that he's using the real tight hi-hats, and he's using upbeat eighth notes and very interesting scenarios. And then all of a sudden they gave him the reins, by playing 50 Ways to Leave Your Lover. And Ed always used to teach me about setups, and I still get asked about this. So I've come up with my own set of setups that works for me and my style. But with Steve, subbing for Cubby on the Mickey Mouse Show, all things that I couldn't do because I'm stuck in Southwest Iowa. So he set the bar for the most rounded drummer of all time, and with the stuff that he did, no pun intended, was. By the way, I have every Stuff album, and I still have not heard a melody. So I always figured, let's just bring in like Patty Austin and have her sing melodies on all these tunes. But it was just amazing, and we saw the whole thing through the Yamaha days and the Hagi days, and but I got to play with him once in Germany, and it was just all we did was just smile at each other. It was very, very cool, and he was able to have the sound, which was kind of tight and dead. He didn't have really a ringing sound, and he's still kicking to this day. I can't just say enough of him and what he's done to the world and all of us.
Okay, Harvey.
He was one that ironically later. Well, when Stuff Like That came out in '78, I had already joined Rufus, and I listened to that, and then Steve and Harvey were both on that album, and Shaka was on it. So I'm going, well, I should be on there, but they didn't know that I was this guy yet. Quincy and I had just met, so it was really cool stuff. But Headhunters really changed my view, and if I'm not mistaken, didn't Harvey play on Money, 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 Money? I believe, which I didn't hear a backbeat. But anyway, from Headhunters, and I realized, well, there's no click on this record, and it doesn't matter. But later he and I became very good friends, and I ended up taking his chair. And then later we were doing a session, different rooms at Set Sound, and he was a track star, and I was a basketball star. So I challenged him to a basketball game and beat the shit out of him, basically. and he was cool. But his son was an all-American basketball player until he ripped his leg open. So I love Harvey, his fluidity. He was a Berkeley guy, and he wasn't as straight a player as Steve, but could just an incredibly musical cat.
Great. I hope you don't mind a few more of these. Jeff Porcaro.
If Jeff Porcaro was still alive today, he would be the guy. And ironically, he and I were very close. And when I moved to town in '78, he welcomed me with open arms. And both my sons, Jack up the latest study with Joe, and Joe was very close. I used to play with Mike all the time, which was really good. But Jeff's time and his feel was unlike no one. And he, let's say we were producing, and it was a quartet, and Jeff wouldn't take 12 or 24. He didn't like soloing, and not that he couldn't do it, he just didn't feel it was his thing. So I mean, I really love Jeff. We used to share a lot of records together because we would blend through the artist's eyes.
Great. Peter?
Peter, I knew, and we all knew Peter, and Peter had such an illustrious life in Ohio, hanging out with all the legends. And, again, I didn't have the Steve Smith, Peter Erskine connections when I was 10. And we tried to get on, what was the name of that show? There was a famous variety show, Ted Mack's Amateur Hour.
Oh, yeah, right.
So my trio tried to get on that back when I was 10 and 11, and we just couldn't pull it off. But I always saw Peter in his educational. He was so musical and educational. And my senior year, I see the bus go back by my high school, and it's a Kenton bus. And I threw my sandwich down and ran up to the high school and introduced myself to Peter. And he was just a year or two older than me. And he was playing, and I go, I'm John Robinson. I'm going to help you. You're going to do a clinic today, and then you're playing with the band tonight. And Peter pulls out this chart, and it's a 12-page chart, and drops it like an accordion. He goes, "Don't let this stuff freak you out." Of course, we're all freaked out. And but Peter had it, he had nailed it right. And I actually targeted him a little bit more because he was starting to play with some more popish acts in the late '70s, and I listened to it and I go, I think I can do that differently. So, but he and I are still friends to this day, and we've shared a lot of movies, and even when we do the Oscars, I haven't done the Oscars in a few years, where he would be in his camp, and then I would do the majority of the Oscars. So, love him.
Last one on the list was Billy Cobham.
Oh, him. Yeah,
That guy.
Billy Cobham scared the shit out of me.
I had to interview him, and I was totally intimidated. And when I got on it with him, he was just the greatest guy in the world.
He was. I mean, I think I first saw him at Jazz Workshop in '73, and I watched him break his second tom head, which it's something that we didn't strive to do, and he just kept the solo going by taking his extra sticks and throwing them in the head, and then bouncing them out to the audience. And I thought, well, that's showbiz. I didn't think of anything like that. But Randy and Michael were there, and I think the first time I had heard Billy, it was in Iowa. I'm driving around in an AM radio car, and it was a McDonald's jingle where he, it was these 30-second note singles, go brrr, pop. You deserve a break today. I think that was Billy, and so later I got to meet him, and I used to carry his foot pedal a little bit, and he just reminded me of I say it in the book, the Jerome Bettis of drummers, who was the fullback for the Steelers.
Oh,
And
okay.
he was just so. I don't know what else to say other than he was a once of a lifetime human being.
That's
Mhm.
for sure.
Now your book, King of the Groove. I just got it last night. I haven't read it yet.
It's good. Read it.
Just reads Ed's part because that's all you need
Yeah.
to read.
So,
Wow.
tell me about the book.
We first of all this is our third year into it. It took a long time to do this. Now I've formed a publishing company called Fourth Quarter Press because we are in our fourth quarter, and even there's a little basketball connect there.
Evan likes to call it the third.
There you go. And I formed with that publishing company and went with Bedside Manor. So we've upped our game to put it in 5-star hotels by your bed next to a really good writer, and so we're doing that. We had to change the cover. I changed the front cover and the back cover, which is being edited now, and everything's up. I did the audiobook, which is the hardest thing ever, because you have to read your words and you have to make them feel really, really good. And I'm running the whole damn thing myself, so I went in and edited it and then sent it to the guy to finalize it. Then we have the ebook out, and we had to correct things like the word Grammy. You have to make sure you have that trademark by it.
Oh, I see.
I didn't know that shit. I mean, we just didn't know it. So that took a bit of time. So, but King of the Groove started with Ali Mang. It was a woman I met 3 years ago in Sarasota, Canadian gal. And she's written 6 books herself. And, it's just like, oh, I said, have you ever thought about doing a book? I go, yeah, but I don't know anything about it. So I'm just the right gal. So a month later in this room, I had nothing but Post-its of just like things that Ed would say, or just things that I remembered, or things that sucked, or failures, and then you start doing this whole thing, and getting into a situation where you have 100 words, and of these 100 words you take 25 of them, let's just say, and circle them at what best describes yourself. Then you take a break and you take those 25 words and then write an essay about yourself. So then that becomes the beginning of your book concept. And so that's what we have done. And this is not I know a lot of people, I mean, there's a lot of drummers out there that have put books out and they're drummer based, but this has a lot of drum information in it, but it's more of a humanity based book. And I think it has a lot to do with my parents. So that's the deal with that. The goal is we are looking into a documentary in the next year. So I mean, if that were happening, Ed, you get a royalty.
Who's going to be John Robinson?
I mean, and the good news is, in 2 weeks I go back to Iowa State for my honorary doctorate in music.
Oh man, congratulations!
Congratulations!
I gotta wear one of these. I gotta wear the thing again and do
That's
it.
That's great, man.
Well,
I went back to where I went to basketball camp, ironically. So.
Well, now I'm a cymbal guy. I used to have a cymbal company. I know you made a big change recently. You're with Istanbul Mehmet now.
Yes.
Tell us about that.
I, growing up and being a Zildjian player, and then finally getting into Boston, and then, do you guys ever go into EU Wurlitzers?
Yeah.
Do you remember that vault in the back?
Yeah.
It was a vault, and I was like, it's like looking at Playboy magazine. I go, "Can I see the vault? Can I see the vault?" So he's like, "Okay, all right." So yeah, and how about this? I go, "Oh," because I mean, Ed, you helped a lot because you had these 13-inch hi-hats that were like, we wanted to mug you for.
Uh-huh.
And your Leedy drum set, by the way, and
Oh yeah.
you still have that, by the way.
No.
Ah. Anyway,
The one that got away. Yeah.
I have a few of those.
Yeah, we all do.
I had Dave Samuel's 61 Slingerland.
Oh my God.
And so I studied with Dave a little bit when he'd show up, and he goes, "You want these drums?" I go, "Yeah, I want them." And I go, "I got them." So I ended up selling them. Of course, as us drummers, you got to sell shit. But
But just sorry to interrupt, but we just had John Clayton, the great bass player, on, and he lived in Altadena and it burned, and he lost his bass, but he also lost Ray Brown's bass.
That was the big news, and
oh man, hurts to think about. Anyway, I just want to throw that in.
Well, I mean, so I ended up, when you first break in. I mean, like when I joined Rufus, we're on ABC Dunhill, we're with Steppenwolf and the Crusaders and Steely Dan. But Remo, who are you guys again? What do you guys do? I'm just trying to get some support and endorsement. And the only endorsement I had was with Slingerland and through Phil and those guys. And Danny Seraphin helped me out.
When would this have been?
78.
Okay.
And the drums were awful. They were just awful. They weren't great. And, but it was endorsement. So one endorsement would lead into another one. And it was as you're trying to, because we're going on the road, we're trying to get support. So finally Remo goes, "Okay, man, I really like you, kid. We'll give you this level." So I ended up getting a Remo endorsement. And then things started to, the minute I did Off the Wall, then there's a semi truck in front of the house. So it was just kind of weird. And you try to tell these kids today about that sort of thing. You got to, I mean, my son, definitely, you got to earn it. And, But Zildjian was incredibly gracious. And then Johnny D, who I used to work with Simmons with, ugh, oh, I was like, it's awful, but it was very interesting.
Perfect sleeper, right?
Oh, I remember Josh Fries, his mother giving me, and he was 12 on the road, and we're doing a New Orleans Paysac or something. And his mother goes, "You take care of Josh now." I go, "I'm not his friggin' parent." And we're walking down whatever the avenue is. He goes, "John, can I go in there? Can I go in there? Can I go in there?" There's a strip club. And I go, no, you can't go in there. Anyway, I'm sorry I veered, but
Good drum dad.
yeah, I go, "You owe me some money, girlfriend." But I stayed with Zildjian. I would have been there to this moment, but Johnny D got me with the sticks. So I was with their first 5 stick artists: Joey, Tony, me, and I can't remember the other two. And yeah, you were there, and then I saw this huge ad. And by the way, I used to go over to Armin's house in Scottsdale and hang out, and I'd bring him Doma, and he'd be like a kid eating crack over in the corner, eating Doma. And we had so much fun together. And when the Istanbul came, or the Constantinople came out, it was pretty good, it brought us back to the old days. But they were phasing them out, and I was like, "This sucks." And I was at a point where, when that ad came out with the stick ad, and all drummers were in that stick ad but mine, I felt it was they fucked up, and it wasn't about the cymbals; it was just about politics. And I was angry enough to make the phone call without being angry, and said, "I don't like this." And so I got over and went over to Carol, and Carol took very good care of me. So, but
Carol Collado?
yeah, but
Okay.
the cymbals, I stayed there until I started researching in the early 2000s about Paiste. And then I went over to Paiste in 2006, thanks to Josh and Tommy, actually. And it was a completely different ballgame, man. It was like manufactured perfection.
Right.
And little did I know that the Istanbul pies, everybody uses them. And so it's just about
They just don't talk about it, right?
they don't talk about it, but it's how each individual company makes these cymbals. So then coming back, it's been about a full year now since I went to Mehmet, and I chose to go to Mehmet because it seemed to be the logical return to Zildjian for me, because of Mehmet's work for Zildjian and all that stuff, and then they've come out with a JR line, which is pretty damn good.
I need to check them out. I haven't heard them yet.
Yeah, they're not thin.
They're not thin,
No.
because I think of the Turkish cymbals as thin, dark,
Yeah.
not your normal sound.
I think we came out with a new category. Let's just put it that way.
Oh, I'll have to check them out.
Yeah. But they work well on all avenues.
Beautiful. I know Colin Schofield brought Tony Williams's widows had the cymbals and the Holy Grails, and she brought them over there with Colin, and they did a whole Tony line. Those
Yeah, and
are pretty good.
I've got them. They're really good too.
They are, yeah, they're very good.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's just nice to have, we get to this point and it's like, okay, am I just going to float or am I going to keep going? And this is why I helped bring Slingerland back also, which, I don't know if we want to delve into that or not.
Sure,
but,
yeah. Tell us about it.
well, being with DW, Ed, you're still with Yamaha, obviously.
Right.
And Adam,
I've been sonar
Yeah,
since
you-
'87.
long time. And that's just a beautiful, all 3 companies are great. I had to leave Yamaha because of, I didn't appreciate that we were being moved over to Grand Rapids and, phasing Hagi out. And I just became a little personalized about that. Drums not being made in Hamamatsu and different things like that. But I went over to DW because John Good and I are very good friends, and Don Lombardi and I are very good friends. So about 5 years ago, everybody knows the story that Chris bought Don the rights to Slingerland as a birthday present. And I'm thinking, God, I mean, I want my son to buy me the rights to something. You know, I don't know. Pretty,
I
pretty
had
hip
no
shit.
idea. Wow.
Yeah, it was a gift. It was a piece of paper. And we all knew that Slingerland had, and going to all these NAMM shows, we'd sing Slingerland go up and down. And, you know, like they bring them back these iconic brands and they suck. You know, it's all made in Taiwan. And
They're just using the name. Yeah.
yeah, using the name and the rights. And by DW getting rid of Gretsch and letting Gretsch go back to Geva, which was to me a great move. After John kind of helped, you know, really, you know, John's the Hoggy of today, if you guys don't know that or not, John Good. And it's just such a great designer of wood and drums. But when this Slingerland thing, back in my head, I go, God, wouldn't it be great full circle to come back to the company that I first started with and did make a little bit of noise and bring them back so that it is official. It's out because we see it over in Memphis Drum. We see it up in New Hampshire. So we are seeing the drum sets. They've come out with two Radio Kings, a 7 and a 5, which are not cheap. And they are better than the original Radio King, but it's exactly what it is, you know, and what it was. And it comes with a certificate of authenticity, a number, a Caskin head if you want to put it on there.
Oh.
And it's just really beautiful stuff. So,
You know, good drums aren't cheap, or cymbals either. But if you look at them compare them to a tenor saxophone,
right.
you know, or a grand piano, or certainly a violin, viola, you know, that kind of stuff, they're not that expensive.
No, and thank God we're not guitar players here, boys.
You want to get the 57 reissue, blah, blah, blah. Yeah.
No, and I got a bunch of guitars here, and I'm like, oh. But so I had them make me a custom set for the Hollywood Bowl gig I did. It was David Foster's 75th birthday. It was really good. And
was that on TV?
it wasn't on TV. I don't know if it will be or not, but
I thought
it
I
was.
saw it somewhere.
No, that would have been his other stuff.
Okay.
But it was a 3.5 hour show. It was really kind of hard, and the drums sounded ridiculous. 3 plies, and I chose to use a 14-inch depth 24, which all that DW world was always 16s or 18s. I go, why? It just doesn't sound good.
Uh-huh.
So all these other new drums that I'll be making, and even the set I use with David now at DW they're all 14 deep.
I think they figured that out a long time ago. You know, those normal standard depths are probably about right.
Yeah, the bass drum sounds better. It just sounds better. You know.
You guys got anything?
Yeah, go. I've been talking all the time, and you guys are just sitting there.
You're the guest.
Hey,
I never liked long drums. I didn't understand it. And when I got with Sonar at the time, a 12-inch tom was like 10 inches deep.
right.
It's like, wait a minute, man. I said to them, can you just make me normal, like what I grew up with? That's the sound in my head. That's the sound that's been in my body. It's all my heroes played that. What's with this long? It's not happening. And then I found out Nussbaum meant walnut. So I said, so make me a Nussbaum with standard depth. And they said, that's a good idea.
Excellent.
And, I'm even using now a little 16 by 12 bass drum for certain gigs.
Nice.
For certain things, it's fine. Originally, it was 16 deep. And I said, no. I'm using no holes. I want to have the impact and the ability of the instrument to respond, not take too long. So,
Do you mount that on the floor, or do you raise it up?
I just put it on the floor.
Perfect.
Yeah. I don't like the lift thing. I think
don't either.
a bass drum has got to be the bass. It's got to be on the bottom,
I like the raised bass drum.
Uh-oh.
And this is good.
What, with
We
your
all spin the web a different way. Yippee-i-yo-ki-yay.
Yeah, but
The
you did?
18-inch bass drum, that I have, I I mean, I don't stay up to date with the latest style, just like with running shoes. You find a good pair that works, you stick with them. But the bass
Right.
drum that I have has has four air holes in it.
Ooh.
Yeah, and nobody who now at Yamaha could tell me why. But at any rate, it's an incredible drum. I can tune it really low and I
Yeah.
can tune it really high. And I don't know. I think I get more sound because the drum is off the floor. But I'll tell you, it's funny because Roy Haynes came down here and he played on. I gave him a drum set to play on, and it had the raised bass drum. And he looked at it and he says, "I can't play this shit, man."
Whoa.
I said, "What do you mean?" He says, "I can't. I'm just so used to having that bass drum on the floor." So we had to loosen the tuning lugs and turn the back hoop so that the extension that you put the pedal on was on the side. And
Oh
then
my God.
he reached into his cymbal bag and pulled out this absolutely ancient Speed King pedal and put that thing on and man, get out of the way. Yeah, he
Oh,
was.
I
see?
heard that they started to remake that pedal after years of not doing it because he needed to have one.
Yeah,
I
yeah,
heard a great
that
one
was
the other
The
day.
Squeak
This is a
King.
Yeah, it's
this,
squeaking.
Go ahead, Adam.
I heard a great anecdote for something happened the other day. Um, it was the end of March and it was Roy Haynes' 100th birthday. And they had a celebration of his life at St. Peter's Church, which is known as the Jazz Church in Manhattan. And quite a few luminaries got up there and spoke. And Jeff Watts got up there and he said, you know, the cymbal companies were going to stop making the flat ride cymbal, but Roy Haynes plays a flat ride. Flat rides matter. He said that the whole place lost it. It was so
Hard to beat
great.
that.
Hey, we got to put that on a shirt, boys.
Yeah, flat
Oh
rides.
man,
It's funny
it
because
was fantastic.
when I had the company, I could never get dealers to order flat rides, and whenever we went to a trade show, boom, man, they were gone in a second. That's what, and sizzles too, rivets. They didn't want anything with rivets. They didn't want anything flat. But man, they were always the first one to sell.
I've got Mehmet sending me some more flat rides. I've got two of theirs, and I actually I have a '71 Peisty 20 I bought in Iowa, ironically. It's just I used to lend it to Joe, but there's something really special about playing on a ride like that. It's like you know your limits,
hmm That's for
and
sure.
and it's all musical or you suck.
hmm
Well, you have the Now He Sings, Now He Sobs legendary recording of a flat ride there.
That ridiculous, ridiculous.
So let me ask you this, JR. I certainly don't ask anybody about income and money, but you've been on a million and million and a million and million hits. Is there a revenue base from those for the artist who did the sessions? Like,
Interestingly, a great question, and this question could be broken down into 10 categories. I first joined the union, Local 372 in North Massachusetts. I can't remember the town right now. And I had to join the union, man, because I was playing clubs in '73. And those were the days where the boys would come in.
right.
Those boys.
Sure.
So then moving to Los Angeles, oh, I'm in a band now, so I have to join SAG because I'm on camera and blah, 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 blah. And then all this other stuff is straightened. But all these sessions, not all of them were filed correctly. These are things that as a 23-year-old, you don't know about. Okay, I'm playing with the Dean's on the date, and there's Neil's playing or whoever's playing bass, Abraham, and it's 2 3 hour sessions with an hour lunch, and we're out of there at 6. Boom. Well, you expect somebody to file this contract. Well, generally it does. So that means your name goes on a contract and gets filed away forever. And now let's say, okay, 1980. Let's take I'm So Excited by the Pointer Sisters, 82. All right, so this is being used for a I don't know, MBA, and all of a sudden you'll see a check for $324 or something. We'll say reuse. But if my name wasn't on that contract, I would have been screwed. And that will continue, and it depends on how it's being used, how many seconds of that song's being used. Even if you're not on the particular part of the song where there are drums, you're still getting paid for the amount of seconds, but this is through the union. Now, twofold to that. I played on a #1 record with an artist named Tina Marie. She was Rick James' girlfriend. She was a pretty wild chick. And the song was called Lover Girl.
Piano player, right?
And I don't know what she did.
Okay.
She was like a hot, kind of a wild Detroit chick.
Okay.
But the song was #1, and it was quite aggressive drum part. Well, I'm with a company called Transparence that collects royalties for radio play worldwide. And ironically, in the United States, we do not get paid for radio play in the United States. Congress has to, my attorney, David Helfant, who's on the Guitar Center board, has filed a motion to try to get us to get radio play. But nevertheless, I tried to go back and file about, they owe me tens of thousands of dollars from past stuff. And so they go in, two different people, the head of the union, the head of the federation, goes in, he goes, all we see is some guy named so-and-so, and it says drum programming. Now, I hired Randy Kerber on that session. He didn't get paid. And I'm thinking, I got fucked. So cut to the other point, the kids today, and we know them, and I know that this whole LA crew, ironically, Dean is still leading the guitar chair at, I don't know how old he is, but there's a whole bunch of guys, and they're doing sessions, non-union, and any sort of motion picture that's done here in California, you have to be on the union contract. But sometimes they'll screw the rhythm section and leave them off and just put the string players on. So for the kids listening, you need to really pay attention to who's hiring you. And you have to make the choice of, are you going to do the session and just take the upfront? Or are you going to, you're in it for the long haul?
And they all add up over years, I would hope.
Well, I mean, it's not like I got a wheelchair and a little green Irish dyke going out to the mailbox, but it's been good, consistent mailbox money. I mean, ain't nobody has paid its way quite handsomely. A lot of these #1 records that I've done, and I'm also a writer, so I've written some things. For example, on my first album, I redid Cold as Ice by Foreigner, but I rewrote it, wrote a bridge, and asked for co-writers, and they gave it to me. So that still gets used for Major League Baseball, and it's not a lot, but as far as drum performances, like I just heard myself on a movie that was done in 2023, and I haven't been paid for it yet. And so what's become of what we are is that you have to become your own police force. You have to pay attention. And a lot of people go, why do you watch so many things? Or well, because I want to see if they're using music. And if they are, I write it down, and then I'll send something to New York and say, you need to file this. And then if they give me some shit, then you got to drop the hammer. It's not just us wanting to play with the greatest rhythm section in the world, or medium rhythm section in the world. It's a business, and these are things. I mean, even when I was at Berkeley, we didn't take business. I was too busy being afraid to walk into Chafee's class. It was some hard shit, and then I couldn't wait to study with Alan, because Alan just wanted me to play while he played vibes. So, but there's more than that. There's more to life than that. It's a long term. It's long term.
Great answers. And now about today, coming up today, it's a whole different music scene. I hate to say, I wanted to do a show like, are we grumpy old men, or is the music industry really that bad? And I think probably it's both, but it really is that bad, isn't it?
Well, do you remember, I mean, the 80s were rocking. I was blessed to be able to be, I mean, even though the 60s actually built my life, but 80s built the house. And we had disc jockeys, real people inside radio stations, ad-libbing, being greased, payola, however they did get greased. That's how we did it. Okay, we're on a radio tour now with Rufus, and you got a bunch of CDs and a bunch of cocaine. We're going to grease this guy because he's going to play the single, and that's how it worked. And it's payola, and then as that got, through the 80s, disc jockeys got eliminated by direct digital programming, and there's and all those beautiful fills I came up with get X'd off because they're doing some sort of digital edit of each song. There's a whole new union pay structure about how Spotify pays people, and there are no great songwriters anymore because songs that have been written that everybody listened to. I mean, there were great songs in the 60s and great songs in the 70s, and I'm not just saying, I'm mostly speaking pop probably here, because that's kind of how that wheel was greased. But and that's where the bigger money is. I mean, we all wanted to be Herbie Hancock and be able to drive a Ferrari and go play all this great stuff, as a jazz artist. And I mean, I'm negotiating with a jazz cruise right now to go back out. It's like, whoa.
Yeah, I've done that. Not on the jazz cruise, but it's interesting to play when you.
But I mean, I'll sum this up real quick. I mean, as things changed, and maybe the kids can figure this out, is that, we need great songs. We need songs that people can skip down the street and sing and whistle without being afraid. And then we need an organization to be able to pay the people that play on them, to be able to hire certain people, or to be able to afford a band, and then we need record labels to do this. And I always said when Mo Austin died, that was the end of the music industry. And Mo Austin, of course, was CEO of Warner Brothers and then DreamWorks, and he was instrumental in so much activity that Sony and Clive Davis and Arista and everybody would bring over, and it was like, Mo had real bands. There's so much great stuff at Warner Brothers during the 80s and 90s, and then that ended. So it's up to the kids. I don't want us to all be the last guys, and I'm not sure how you, I mean, I know that you've pensioned out, but you're still performing and teaching, right?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. I mean, do the young kids ask you questions like this?
Yeah, I have a little arrangement here where I bring kids over from the university to play, and it's sort of a mentoring situation, and just trying to clue them in on what to expect and all the things that you're talking about. Just if you're good at what you do, and if you're honest, if you're a good person, you'll be successful.
Right.
How you define success is up to you, but that's pretty much it. Yeah, I feel there's hope.
Good.
Yeah. Hey, listen, I have another appointment I have to run off to.
Well, we're about ready. John, you have anything else?
No, I'm just going to Iowa State May 17th, and we got a whole bunch of stuff. They'll be prepping up for that through social media. So
Great.
JohnJRRobinson.com.
Say that again.
JohnJRRobinson.com.
All right. Thank you, gentlemen, for being here. JR, I can't tell you how much I appreciate this. I'll get it posted post haste.
Thank you, Michael. Adam, so much. Ed, I'm eternally grateful to you.
Oh, thank you. Thank you for the kind.
And I do want to hire you to play in a jazz group that I'll be producing. So I don't know if you want to travel or not, or
I'm ready. I'm ready.
want to get out of Dodge, or are we recording
Yeah,
it in
I'm ready.
Dallas?
I'm ready.
All right, buddy. I love you guys. Thank you, Michael.
Thank you.
Thank
We'll see
Stay
you all
well,
soon.
everybody.
All right. Keep in touch,
Bye-bye.
boys. Bye.
Okay.
Aloha.
Bye-bye.
Yes, aloha.